There are people in this world who, for whatever reasons, it doesn't really matter why, aren't capable of intimacy. I know adult men, and I will embrace them. I will hug them. It's like hugging a rag doll. Not only they can't hug back, they're unhuggable. It's sad. It's tragic. Because these people, whatever the reasons are not capable of being close. And ultimately, it has to do with the brain. To be close to another person, you have to have space for them. A bigger person is capable of greater intimacy because he has far, far more space to get close to another person. And the person you marry, in Mitzvah Hashem, will be capable of intimacy. You'll be able to be close. Not just because you're married, but because you're able to share everything because of each one of your health. You cannot be intimate with another person unless you're going to lie. I mean, this is not a psychology class, but it's common sense. Unless you're capable of vulnerability, of being open. And it has to do with self-trust. And some people are afraid of that, and it makes it very, very tricky. The Rebbe is so big, and he's so healthy, that he has the capacity for intimacy with thousands of people. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. But it is true. Because if you've been around Lubavitch, certainly from the people who knew the Rebbe, including my generation, how many words did I exchange with Lubavitch Rebbe in my entire life? How many words? You can't make a paragraph out of it. I was so afraid of him. I was so ashamed of him. I never opened my mouth. And my father, the Rebbe knew. My father, the Rebbe spent time with. I would walk by and he would give me a bracha and I would sort of hide my face without hiding my face. I remember when I was getting married, I told the Rebbe, I'm getting married tomorrow. I'm getting married tomorrow. 4 words. Yeah? So the Rebbe gave me a second dollar and that was the end of that. I didn't have conversations with the Rebbe. I have a few moments. I have my moments that are meaningful to me, but I don't have a lot. I don't have a lot. But I have a very personal relationship with the Rebbe. I have a very personal relationship with the Rebbe. And for me personally, that relationship was the Rebbe's eyes. I figured out at a certain point that you have to look at the Rebbe and try to make eye contact. The Rebbe's eyes spoke. They spoke not the way a normal person's eyes speak. He looked at you. When people look at each other very closely, there's a weird feeling, because it's almost like an invasion. So seriously, you don't really look at other people. You look at them, you look in their direction, you don't want to make it look, but when you look into another person's eyes and they look back, it feels weird. Hopefully with your husband it won't feel weird. The Rebbe didn't have that problem. He looked straight through you. And you couldn't look back, not because there was a lack of intimacy, but because there was too much intimacy. He looked at you and talked to you. Those eyes showed happiness when you were doing well as a chassid. Those eyes showed disappointment when you weren't doing well as a chassid. Those eyes knew when there was something you needed to do that you're not getting around to do. And you know how much time those eyes touched yours? Literally a fraction of a second. A piece of 1 second. But it was a whole conversation. Now, you can tell me I'm making it up. You can tell me I'm in a cult. Whatever you wish. But you're not going to change my mind. Because this is my experience. And I had this experience many times. The Rebbe sits in a room of thousands of people. And between the talks, he's looking around. He's having conversations with people at a speed that's... It's not supersonic. It's faster than the speed of light. It's not fast as the speed of light because his eyes were good. It was incredibly rapid. But it looks like just hello, hello, hello. It ain't so, people. Every person at that Farbrengens knew that there's a connection, there's an intimacy between the Rebbe and themselves. It's very private. And nobody was allowed to be there. Because the Rebbe made you feel very naked. You couldn't cover up. But around the Rebbe, you were open. Totally open. And it was hard enough that just he and you knew whatever it was that the conversation was. But other people, but that was his magic. He said, Rebbe, this incredible neshama who connected to so many people, and we had personal relationships with him. Personal relationships. The kind of relationships you have with your father, the kind of relationship you have with the people you're really close to and really comfortable with. You were never comfortable with the Rebbe, but you were so delighted that he was in your life. It was so important that the Rebbe was your Rebbe and you were his chassid. I was in Boston a couple of months ago, And there's a man there who was around my age. We were in yeshiva at the same time. But he didn't have my background. He was a Baal Tshuva. I mean, my father spent an hour with the Rebbe. An hour in one evening, not over the course of his years. The Rebbe was his therapist. My father was an orphan. And the Rebbe looked after him like he looked after children. The Rebbe's relationship with Chassidim in the early years, but especially those who came from difficult situations. He was a Baal Tshuva. And I was in Boston, and I was saying similar things to what I'm saying right now. So he pulled me aside and said, I have two stories, two moments. Simple little things. He says when the boys had a break, he would go into the Beis Medrash and learn Rambam. And he would sit in the Zal, and the Rebbe would come out of his office and go into the elevator to go downstairs for Mincha. And he was able to tell that the Rebbe was going downstairs for Mincha because the boys who were watching the Rebbe's door, which is the Rebbe, they would all run down, so he would follow them. There was an occasion, I don't know what it was, but he was sitting in the Zal, there was nobody in the Zal, and the Rebbe walked out of his room to go into the elevator, and he didn't have his normal signals that the Rebbe was leaving. The Rebbe walked into the Beis Medrash and just looked at him. And basically saying, I'm going down to Mincha. Because the Rebbe knew that he would wait for other people to be aware that the Rebbe was going into the elevator, but that day there was nobody there. So he just walked into the Beis Medrash and looked at him. Simple thing. But what did that tell him? That the Rebbe knew he was there. He was a Baal Tshuva. His father was a Chassid, his mother was a Chassid. He didn't have a fancy last name. He didn't have a lot of money. Many people would not have noticed him. And the Rebbe was telling him, I know you're here. And his second story, which is it's a simpler story, it was Simchas Torah. The shul was packed with people. And he didn't know the order of events. He simply didn't know what you do next. The davening of Simchas Torah is very upside down. You do Birchas Kainim and Shachris. Then you say Hallel. And then you do Hakafis. And then you lane. So he's standing maybe 25 feet from the Rebbe, 20 feet from the Rebbe. And after they finish Hallel, he opens up his Siddur and he starts to say Ataharesa, which is for laning, which you don't do. You first do Hakafis. The Rebbe looks across at him and sort of tells him with his eyes, we're not doing that now. We're going to do something else now. And he got the message. It's such a simple thing. But what the Rebbe was saying to this man who joined the community as an individual, which is very hard. The hardest thing being about tshuva, and you know this personally, and you'll know it more when you get married, the hardest part of being about tshuva is not having family. It's hell. You're in Lubavitch, and you have your friends, you have your circle, but you're by yourself. And the Rebbe let him know. He told this to me now, that these were his moments. The Rebbe was letting him know, I know you're here. It's unbelievably, it makes you feel like $1 million. There's thousands of people in the room, and the Rebbe looks at you. And when the Rebbe looked at you, there was no doubt. If you were not sure he was looking at you, he wasn't. Because the Rebbe's eyes were so powerful. They were like lasers. If he looked at you, you knew he was looking at you. And he just sent him a simple message. We're not doing laning now. We're doing hakafis now. Not a big deal. But what the Rebbe was saying is, I know you're there.